As Reverend King mentioned, what we're talking about is talents, and actually we're really going to be talking about work. It's not a big, interesting topic. I thought it was real interesting. And what it did for me is it made me look at work a little bit differently. And what we're going to do is, I don't have that many. I was sitting there thinking, I have, I think about 12 of these handouts. So what I'll do is, if you have them electronically, you have them? You bring them? Okay. What I'll do is I'll kind of disperse what I've got here, and maybe we can do a little bit of sharing. Look here. Can I not count? Okay, so what this is some material that came from, it's called Urban Ministries, and that's who we've been getting our Vacation Bible School lessons from for a while now. And they always kind of have they have an interesting spin on it. They're urban, they have a kind of a black orientation, something like that, a black African American orientation to it. Some things, sometimes it seems like it's a little more than I care for, because as Christians, I think that the focus doesn't really need to be so much on African American, even though I realize that God made us all, and there are some differences in the African American community that I think is interesting to be addressed in the church. But a lot of the things that they kind of put emphasis on, I think might be just a little much. Right? I know in some organizations that I belong to, we talk about supporting black businesses and different things like that. And this company does that, which I think is kind of a little strange for a Christian organization. But you know, everybody has their way of looking at things. So the scriptures that we're going to be talking about, it's coming out of Genesis. And it's going to start by talking about God's design for work, is the name of the lesson. And I'll read a little bit of it, but mostly I'm going to tell you what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to give you an opportunity. I'm going to send you some information, and I want to give you the opportunity to kind of go through this material on your own, and kind of come back with what you think are answers, so that it's more interactive, right? I don't want to just read what they have and kind of talk about it, but I want to give you an opportunity to read it and to think about it, and then we want to come back and kind of search the scriptures to kind of see how the scriptures lead us. You know what I mean? So I'm really going to ask a lot of questions. It's not really as much of a lecture as I'm really going to be trying to lead the conversation, but I want it to be more of a conversation. It's going to be a little different from what we normally are doing, so just kind of be aware. Okay, so to start out with, I am going to just kind of tell you a little bit about what the material that they have. One of the things that this guy leads out with is he has a couple of videos. And these videos are about these different pastors and their ministry. And one of them, he's focused on, he realized that in his congregation, they were having a lot of health issues. And so what he decided to do was to start a farm. And so he really focuses on health and what the Bible says about, how we should be eating and, things like that. So he takes kind of a different spin on it. And what this material has in it is it has links to those videos. They're YouTube videos, so if you have access to internet, not right now, but when you get home or have an opportunity, look at the videos. One of them is a production that Oprah did, and it talks about our eating habits and how these ministers feeding like 10,000 people within their community. They built this farm that's really close to the church. And so one of the things that this whole thing is trying to do is to get us to look at our own community, our own environment, and to kind of apply some of, it'll make more sense about work and what our efforts can be in our own community. Okay, it'll start to clear a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just start out reading. It says, introduction to the lesson. We will explore the original design of work in Genesis' account of creation. In the beginning, God created, that is, God worked. God then enlisted humanity to continue his work in his newly created world. As we journey together, think about what God may be teaching you about work through the creation account. Think about what you should understand about God-given work, like that entrusted to Adam. Before we explore today's biblical text, let's visit two contemporary examples of pastors and the laymen who view work as an extension of their faith. Those are the videos that I'm talking about. That they're, I just kind of gave you a kind of a brief on what they're going to be referring to. I saw this lesson. You need an help for it?
No.
I saw this lesson. It actually changed the way I look at work. It has this concept that they call co-laborers with God. And I had a very worldly view of work in the sense of, I figure, what do you work for? Yeah, you want to get rich. I wasn't working to eat, I was working, I wanted to get rich, right? I wanted to live a life of luxury. And so I worked really hard, and my goal, my strategy was whether or not I would be able to help people, but I was really just trying to get rich. Now, we did this thing on financial peace, and he kind of brought out a lot of that, you want to be able to have money, because money is a tool, but the tool is to be used for helping others, right? And that was kind of the theme of that. So he recommends reading all of Genesis 1, chapters 1 and 3. I don't think we have enough time to do that. I'm going to ask you guys to do that at home. But what I'd like to do right now is to read Genesis 1:26. Somebody want to read it? Somebody got the Bible out? The whole thing. Genesis 1, start off verse 26, go to 31.
God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he them. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, every tree, and the which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed, to you it shall be food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat, and it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day.
Okay, so that basically is, so what I handed you out first was our lesson, and then what I'm handing out right now is the workbook that goes to the lesson. So it has the questions that I'm going to be going over. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and hand them out to you right now. So You don't have to write down the questions, but you'll know where I'm getting the questions from. You got electronic? Okay. Okay, so the first thing that it kind of starts to ask about, okay, so what did we see there? What was happening in that, in the text? What happened? What did he tell man to do? Okay. What was that last part? Be fishers of men? I don't know, did it say that? Yeah, that's talking about, yeah. So initially, so there's a couple things. I'm gonna kind of skip around because I'm not gonna read the questions verbatim, but I'm just gonna tell you what I thought was really key. So initially, when God creates all the other portions of creation, basically he just speaks it, right? He says, "Let there be," and there was, right? But with man, and even the same thing with the fish. He says, the seas begot the fish, and the land brought forth the animals, right? But with man, God stoops down, and he scoops up some dust, and he creates a man with his hands. Of course, okay. There's a term called anthropomorphic, and that's how when they talk about God doing things, we understand things as humans. So they'll say God bent over and he picked up his food. That doesn't mean literally that he does that, but that's the way we understand how we do things, right? So, basically it means we describe things with a human likeness, but that doesn't, it's not true, but it's just, that's the way we understand things, so that's how we explain it, right? So we say God, did something, God's right arm, God doesn't have a right arm, God is spirit, right? But we say things like that, right? Okay. So he actually bends down, he actually creates man. He's personally involved, instead of just speaking, he's personally involved in creating man. Man's relationship with God is different from the animals. It's different from all of creation. Man is God's masterpiece. The author says some things that I don't know if I totally agree with, but he talks about God being lonely. He talks about God got a lot of enjoyment out of creating, out of work. And when God says all this stuff is good, but he didn't have anybody to share this work with. So he creates man. He personally makes man in his image. Talks about it in his likeness and his image. Now remember, I'm saying that some of the wording is, it's worded in a way that we'll understand, right? So it doesn't mean that physically some of these things that he, just have to be careful on. We know that we describe things because we're human, and we understand human things, right? So I'm just letting you know that you just got to kind of take this thing from a spiritual standpoint, that this is what God is doing, right? God is personally involved in creating man, and he has a relationship with man like different from the animals, right? And then God actually, he blows his spirit into man. He blows into his nostrils, right? His breath, right? Now, again, I'm trying to tell you that they're speaking in terms that we understand, right? Okay. So what was the point? So the author is this guy who does the exposition or teaching the lesson, he says that God was lonely and he created man so that he would have company, right? and that man could be a co-laborer, a co-worker in creation. Okay. Now, I'll just leave it at that. He references some scriptures and things like that. So as we go through, as you go through the study, I want you to kind of look at it, and I want to talk a little bit about it a little bit more tomorrow after you guys have had an opportunity to kind of read through the scriptures. You don't mind? Okay, so where am I at? So he's talking about what he starts to contrast the difference between when God originally created man and what he asked him to do. And in there it talks about he asked him to be fruitful and to multiply. And then he talks about him naming the animals. And when he talks about naming the animals, back in that, the naming of something implied that you had authority over it, right? He gives different examples about when different nations were conquered, how a lot of times they would rename you, right? That's to show their authority. I have authority, and also they would be describing what function you would have with your name. We don't do that now. We name people all kinds of stuff now, but that used to be the thought process was I'm giving you a name related to, you know, your destiny or your function or what I'm not gonna say blessing, but what they were applying to. Okay. And then the author starts to talk about, as we get a little further in Genesis, it talks about the curse. It talks about what did the fall of man, what happened, you know, with Satan and or the serpent, what happened with the serpent and the temptation of Eve, and talks about God actually giving the command to Adam not to eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge, good knowledge and good. And then how Satan beguiled the woman, how he kind of tricked the woman, how they end up doing it. And then God takes them and puts them in the garden, and he gives them another task. And so he's contrasting the original task of naming, having dominion, and subduing the creation, to now work changes. At one time, work was it was designed to be easy. It was designed to, you know, that you were going to manage things, right? You guys know the difference between having a job where you're the manager and when you're the worker. Okay, so after the fall, work was redefined, up with the curve, but redefined to where now, what does it say? Was that at the end? Where it starts to talk about what? That verse should be before we 31. Oh, it's good? Okay. Okay, let's go to 2 and 15. Genesis 2 and 15. Again, I want you guys to read the whole verses 1 through 3 when you get a chance tonight, tomorrow. And but right now, let's look at Genesis 2 and 15. And it says, you might read it.
The Lord God took, I'm reading from the English now. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. The Lord God commanded the man, saying, you may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For the day that you eat of it shall surely die. Then the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so just wanted to show you where it's saying and God took man and put him in a garden, he's saying to dress the garden. You guys, and I think you used a different, you said work the garden?
Yeah,
Tend the garden?
to work it and keep it.
Okay, work it and keep it. Okay. Okay, so again, the working of the garden was the caring of the garden. It actually starts to talk a little when you read the detail of the lesson. The author is talking about the environment when creation first started. He talks about the water being the firmament and it being a separation. And he talks about that before the flood, the condition of the earth was different, where there was there was a lot of moisture in the air. And he basically kind of compared it to like it was a greenhouse effect. And they talk about because of this, man had longevity, like they lived a long time, like Methuselah, I think it was 900 some years, right? Because it was a different environment. But after the flood, things changed, right? The way, the composition of the earth was different. And of course, people started living shorter, like I think where we live now, 100 years. That's where I'm going. Okay. I don't know. Jump to short. Okay, so let's see. Thorns and thistles, where are we at? Okay. So that's kind of the background. I'm going to skip the section there. Okay, so the author does ask us to memorize a verse, and that verse is Genesis 1:31, and that reads what? This is what he's asking us to remember. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And then did a little word study on good, and how would you just what do you think the Bible means when it says that it was very good? He was satisfied. He enjoyed it. He was satisfied with it. Okay. Okay, so a lot of people go with, take the concept of good and evil, right? And look at good and evil. But what the author is trying to point out to us is that the context is that good means that it fit his purpose. He was pleased with it because it fit his purpose. He made it, it was good. It met what he was trying to accomplish for his creation purpose. Okay. Now let's look at a couple of questions. Okay, so I'm just going to read some of the questions. It says, in review of Genesis 1, and I know you guys haven't read it, but most of you are familiar with it, right? Okay. It says, in what way does God regard humankind differently than the other living creatures that he created? Thoughts? He gave us dominion. Okay. What's the question?
In what ways does God regard humankind differently than the other living creatures he
And said he gave them dominion? So, okay, he gave humans dominion? Okay. What would that, those are, you need both of them? Yeah. No, one of them is the lesson and the other one is the worksheet.
Oh.
Okay. Well, so what does that mean? Why did he give them dominion? Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts? Yeah, that's good. She said that it was a way that God was, because he was in his image and likeness, he created him in his image and likeness. He was giving him authority. Okay. Authority over what? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Anything else? I told you guys this is going to be interactive. Huh? He put his spirit into us? He blew his spirit into us? Okay.
I think man is regarded as just a higher, I don't want to say order or class, but I'm going to say order or class of being because of the nature of man's creation. I think because of the purpose that man was created for, with, it's regarded as a whole different class of men. I'll give you an example, right? Thou shalt not kill, right? Just that one thug in a minute. It's a whole different class of men. Without even thought, that's still a living creature, that's still something God created, but we take no consideration. We're quick to grab a fly swatter, or some big father, and you know, and I'm not being humorous, but what I'm saying is the nature of who we are is vastly different than the order of all other animals, all other creatures that were created, and that's partly because of how he made us and what he made us for. And I think giving us authority, I think ultimately that was the purpose. It was for us to give back to him and glorify him. And so he gave us, or he made us different. We think. We don't just instinct.
Right.
We consider. We don't just do. We have the capacity. We have the capacity to love God on a different level. Not just show his glory for compulsion, but show his glory because that's what we desire to do. And so I think he regards it differently. I think that's also why when it goes foul or when stuff does happen that's not right, I think that's why he also holds us higher as far as accountability is concerned. Because
No more questions. The rest of us look bad.
because I think there's just a higher accountability
No, we're
because
just
of
full
the
and
nature.
everything, but that's just.
I just think there's a different level of accountability that comes with being who we are because of how God created us.
Okay. As we get, you said a couple of real key things that made me think of a lot of things that I want to address. But I want to go back to just the term dominion and subdue. And the word dominion in a lot of the different translations will say to rule over, right? And subdue talks about developing the order that you brought up. One of the questions, when we start getting into the questions, is start to talk about how that went awry. In that to rule means to lead and to guide and to care for. And when you said stepping on bugs, you brought up a whole lot of thoughts jumped in real fast. And one was, even when we think about Cain and we think about Abel and the murder, and the shedding of blood. And the original plan, as we were reading, did you guys notice that? I think we read that. I've been reading a lot, so I can't remember what we just read. But it talked about whether or not God had created these the fruit, and He had created the herbs for the animals to eat, and the fruit for the people was our meat. But you know, we eat steak now, right? That wasn't the original plan. That wasn't the original plan. And this guy, the spin that these guys really are going in, they're starting to talk about health, right? And I'm going to get to that, but I'm trying to make sure that we kind of following, you know, what some of the parameters or some of the things that the principles that lead up to what these guys are talking about eventually. Like you said, we step on bugs, all right? But we're supposed to be caring for, we're supposed to be concerned for the things that God created, His creation. But He's right, we do step on bugs and don't think nothing about it. But it has become so corrupt that people also shoot certain people and don't consider it, right? Because we have lost the value, we don't recognize the sanctity or the value of life anymore. When I say life, the creation anymore. We abuse our earth. We abuse, you know, whether it's water, the forest, the air, you know, we're just out of control. Yeah, we out of control. We out of control.
So you're saying that man's definition of the food chain, for example, our definition is that was God's intent?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, for example, people say that the spider webs will go to catch flies.
So you know, in Revelation, right, when they start talking about the lamb is gonna lie, the lion is gonna lie down with the lamb, that's how it was intended to be. We weren't supposed to be eating each other. I'm just saying.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
I mean, you know, I like chicken, you know, but that ain't how it was supposed to be. I like salad too. I'll be honest. I like salad. I could probably do some salad. I could do some salad. Some cookies. But the things that we do, remember that we've been conditioned to do certain things. Right? That doesn't mean that's the way it was supposed to be. But we have, when they start talking about. Yes, ma'am.
So if God did not intend for us to eat the animals, does that mean we're sinning because we're eating them? I mean, I'm laughing, but it's still funny.
They just got deep. That's just got deep. That's ready to get deep right now.
Okay, so now, see, let me put on my glasses. When you define sin, what is sin? Now, because that takes us to a whole, that's a whole other thing. What is sin? Right? There's all kinds of sin, right? There's the transgression, right? There's basically sin is not doing what God wants you to do.
Right? But
Right.
He didn't intend for us to eat them. Because we make up the food chain, does that mean He didn't intend for us to happen, so we're not doing what He's wanting us to do?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's bad.
So we are sinning by eating shit.
Okay.
And I'm
Okay. Look. Remember, okay, listen to this. Remember, I'm going to take you to a whole other example just to kind of show you the point that I'm trying to make. Because when people say, are you sinning, I don't want you to think that,
You're gonna go to hell over the chicken.
yeah, okay. So listen to this. The example that just jumps out at me is divorce, right? We're not supposed to be divorcing people, right? But Moses said, because of your hard hearts, go on and divorce people because you're messing up people by, well, actually people, their husbands was like killing wives. It was getting. Yeah, but it wasn't supposed to be. But God, It was not intended, but yeah, when you go so far over, you weren't supposed to cross the line, but you way over here now, right? So when you're over here, how do you handle it, right? And so that divorce is a way of handling something that it wasn't supposed to happen, but it is happening, right? You weren't supposed to be used. Yes, sir. I can.
So, theology, the perfect will of God versus a permissive will,
Mm-hmm.
right? Perfect will of God says this is what you're created for, this is why you're created, this is what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Permissive will says, I'm going to allow all of this to happen because of how your nature has shifted and or changed. We are in the image of God, but we've been marred.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the stuff that we would have had as the image of God, we don't do, can't do, won't do. Because we're marred, he allows some things. Because it would be inconceivable that God would still have us at that level or that standard of eating fruits and berries, and then in Leviticus tell us to kill the lamb and eat the meat thereof. You got to reconcile that too, right? So somewhere in here, the way our nature is and who we are has changed to the extent that God has permitted some things to happen. Even when you get to the New Testament, where in the Old Testament they didn't mess with that pork. Well, but you get in the New Testament, he tells Peter, all things are clean.
Right.
It's all become clean.
Right.
He said, I'm now giving you some permissions because I know where you're at now. I know the transition. I know the change that's come. So God has a lot, including
That doesn't mean that it was intended,
but that doesn't mean that
that's
it
where we
changes the
are.
intentions. Right.
Yeah.
And
Oh, to add one thing, because I was thinking about the Levitical law as well, where it actually tells you what to eat and what you couldn't eat, and then the scripture that says, don't call what unclean, but God is clean. So we are allowed to eat now. But in the Old Testament, in the garden, where the purpose was different, and this is what we're talking about, the change of the purpose, I was supposed to eat the fruit. So there were no dead animals. But remember, once they sinned, they didn't kill animals to call themselves. So now we have
well, so it's hard to make because the author, as we read the lesson, the author starts talking about after the flood, different things occur, right? And so I'm not trying to undo and say, rewind and get back to this is the perfect way because we don't have the same benefits that Adam had because the world is so messed up, right? I mean,
so much.
Adam only had a few problems compared to what we have. We got problems compiled. We have compound interest problems. Thousands of years of it. Just every generation just seems to be having compound issues on top of issues, to where I can't even describe all the issues that we have now. We have all kinds of issues, right? But our goal, right, is we do want to look back at what was the design, and how can we live as close to the design as feasible, right? That would be pleasing to God. Not that if you don't do exactly what He wants you to do, you're going to be punished. But as Christians, our goal should be wanting to please God. Right? Not that He's going to punish us, or that we're going to earn favor by doing certain things. But we should just want to please God, right? Because one, God is all-knowing and wise, right? If we would do what God said, we would benefit just because we're benefiting off behaving from the wise person, right? But sometimes we don't look at it like that. But anyway, I'm trying to get back to, I want to get back to work because I think it's real interesting in that as you read through the lesson, you'll see that the whole vacation Bible school system was set up to talk about the preschoolers, the primaries, the juniors, and the teens. And one of the things that I got out of it is, as adults, we have a lot of experience with what talents are, what gifts, what talents we have as people. And we want to encourage or start planting seeds with our young people and helping them develop what their talents are. But we want to teach them that you're not just doing something to get money, but you actually are a co-worker in creation. And creation is still being unfolded. Things are still happening. God is still doing things in the world. And what this whole lesson is about is it's trying to tell us that we need to, it starts to ask us questions about how do we feel about our job? How do we feel about work? How do we feel? And what it's trying to do is it's trying to get us to step back and look at everything. We segment our lives in such a way that we think work is over here, and we think church is over here, and our family is over here. But our life as Christians is supposed to encompass the whole thing. When we select a career, we're supposed to go to God in prayer and look at how whatever skill we're developing, whatever our gifts are, how that impacts the kingdom. But there's so many pieces that come out. I know I only got like half, I probably only got about 10 minutes left now. 5 minutes? 3 minutes? 3 minutes? Oh, Lord. Okay, that's what you might want to read through the material. Just read the material yourself. It's good stuff in there in terms of making you think, right? You got to go back to the scripture, though. Don't just, because this is somebody who wrote a commentary, and like I said, he goes off in a couple of places, but he's making you think about, as a church family, what we're supposed to be, how to look at this thing, right? How to encourage our kids about what they should be doing, how they should be thinking about work. I know for me, I got to a point when I was working for HP where I was mad going to work, but the Bible talks about even when you're working for your master, right? Work as you are working for Christ, right? Because it's going to be your witness to the world. The world sees how you behave, right? And it's going, what kind of God is that dude serving, right? Did he come in and he, oh man, I ain't gonna tell you everything he was doing, but he wasn't doing everything he was supposed to be doing. But that's a bad witness, right? But this lesson is trying to tell us, okay, talk to our kids about all the different ways that, all the options, all the things that they can do for work, but encourage them to do, and ourselves, encourage us to work for the right reason, to work to be a benefit, right? I think that was the main thing I wanted to get in. Any questions? Again, I'm going to ask you to kind of read through the material, look at the videos. There's this one thing I really like that I know he's going to go get other people, bring them up now. But there was this thing that he talked about something I thought was really neat about, he called it a spiritual will. We think about writing, where everybody always gives you advice about make a will so, when you die, your kids know what they're supposed to get, right? But he talked about this legacy of writing a will about the things that you learned in life and passing on those spiritual jewels to your kids to leave a legacy. And I was like, wow, that's pretty good, because I'm thinking about, we ain't done our will, but I need to do not only that will, but I need to do the ethical, moral, the spiritual will. But read this and we'll talk more, we'll go into more detail. If you guys have questions about the work, we'll talk about it next week.